Hello, and welcome to my presentation for Sport Coaching Pedagogy. My name is Brendan Duffy, and my presentation topic is motivation. Motivation is a key area of sport. It plays a huge role in teams or individual success and failure. In fact, I'd like to pose an initial question in this presentation. In two very evenly matched teams or athletes, is it fair to say that motivation is the only factor which separates them and produces a clear winner and loser? I'll look further into this question later. Before I start, I'll give you a brief rundown of what I'll speak about. I'll address motivation, defining it, and offering examples. I'll look at reasons to be motivated, the factors which provide the get up and go. I'll look into different motivational theories and compare them with one another. I'll briefly look at and explain Maslow's hierarchy of needs and see how it influences motivation and how it relates to the sporting environment. I'll then examine the main reasons for this presentation, that is, how to motivate. From a coaching perspective, what techniques can be implemented to enhance the motivation of individuals and collectively as a team. As stated by the Australian Sports Commission, motivation is the driving force behind an athlete's desire and determination to achieve their goals. For elite athletes, being motivated can help ease the pressure and demands. It has also been noted that those who maintain their motivation over a long period of time are likely to experience more positive results. Intrinsic motivation refers to motivation that comes from inside an individual, rather than from any external or outside rewards. It is the motivation that comes from the pleasure one gets from the task itself, or from the satisfaction in completing or even working on a task. For example, completing an assignment for the enjoyment, and not for a good grade at the end of it. I found this picture, and I think it sums up intrinsic motivation quite well. It shows how the love of something is contrast with the rewards, often money. An example of this is the Indian Premier League 2020 cricket competition. Players are offered substantial amounts to play in the IPL, usually much more than playing for their country. West Indian off-spinner Sunil Narine is the latest player to turn down potential national duties to play in the IPL. Although Narine is yet to make his Test match debut, strong form suggested he would earn a call-up for the home series against Australia. Instead, he opted for the $700,000 paycheck to play in India. Extrinsic motivation. This is motivation that comes from outside an individual. The motivating factors are external, rewards such as money or grades. These types of rewards provide pleasure and satisfaction which the task itself may not provide. For example, someone may work hard on something that they may not necessarily like, simply to get a reward at the end of it. The following pictures here offer good examples of extrinsic motivation. Shown here are the types of things which help extrinsically motivated people achieve success. Furthermore, the trait-centered view suggests motivated behaviour is primarily a function of individual characteristics. This is personality, needs and goals. Some coaches may describe certain athletes as real winners, implying that this athlete has the personal makeup to allow them to excel and be successful in sport. It is believed that some people simply have personal attributes that seem to predispose them to success and high levels of motivation. The situation-centered view, however, is a complete contrast. It suggests that motivation levels are determined predominantly by the situation. For example, someone may be highly motivated in a game situation, but not so much during training sessions. This theory is not recommended by sport and exercise psychologists as the most effective motivation theory. This is because there are many situations where people may not enjoy the environment, or they're in a negative environment, but they are still motivated to do well. For example, the style of a coach may clash with an athlete, yet they are still motivated to succeed for other reasons. The interactional view of motivation is believed to be the most ideal and is endorsed by many sports psychologists. It is understood that motivation is not solely developed from participant factors, e.g. personality, nor does it solely result from situational factors like a win-loss record of a team. Instead, motivation is best understood by examining how these two factors relate to each other. The self-determination theory addresses basic issues such as personality development, self-regulation, psychological needs, life goals, energy and vitality. Somewhat linked with intrinsic motivation, the self-determination theory identifies three needs necessary to gain motivation. They are competence, or succeeding in what you do, relatedness, or connecting with others, and autonomy, that is, being in control of your life. The achievement goal theory, on the other hand, is a different approach to motivation and surrounds task and ego-related behaviour. Task-oriented involvement focuses largely on one's own efforts and improvement, while ego-oriented involvement is concerned with comparing oneself to others. Encouraging cooperation and rewarding effort is an example of a task-oriented climate, while promoting rivalry amongst teammates is considered an ego-oriented climate. In addition to these motivation theories is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Psychologist Abraham Maslow introduced this concept in 1943 in his paper A Theory of Human Motivation. It is a guide to understanding human motivation. It suggests people are motivated to fulfill basic needs before moving on to advanced needs. Usually displayed as a pyramid, the hierarchy displays the most basic needs at the bottom and the more complex needs at the top. The pyramid is broken down into 5 categories: physiological needs, safety, belonging, esteem, and self-actualization. I'll now look at some of the major motivators in sport before coming back to this concept. Of course, motivators vary greatly from person to person, and while it also depends on what context we were talking about, some common motivators for athletes may include such things as achievement, recognition or respect, financial reward, empowerment, fitness or social reasons, competition, enjoyment, or fame. Yes, Maslow's hierarchy of needs model was designed in regards to general human motivation and is not intended to be applied in a sporting environment. However, by examining this model and its components, it gives evidence as to why people get involved and stay motivated to participate in sport. By looking at what makes up each category and comparing it to what sport offers, we can begin to see how beneficial participating in sport is. So firstly, the physiological. Sport offers health, fitness, energizing of mind and body. Safety. Order and structure of organised sport helps people achieve the requirements of this category. Belongingness. Belonging to a sporting team or club. Esteem. Sport can build confidence through success as well as achieve recognition. Self-actualization. Challenges and fulfillment can be reached through playing sport. So although sport is not the only answer to complete human motivation, by examining Maslow's hierarchy of needs in this way, we can see how beneficial sport actually is, and how it can contribute to general human well-being and motivation. As a coach, it can sometimes be difficult to enhance player motivation. With reference to the book Foundations of Sport and Exercise Psychology, written by Robert Weinberg and Daniel Gould, I'll examine 4 main guidelines to develop motivation amongst players and ensure it stays at a high level. Guideline 1. Both situational and personal factors should be considered when enhancing motivation. Often when working with athletes with low motivation, coaches can attribute this to the participants' personal characteristics. Other times, coaches may fail to consider the personal attributes of their athletes and instead put all the blame on the situation. For example, the training drills must be boring because the athletes are showing no interest. In reality, however, it is usually a combination of personal and situational factors which contribute to low participant motivation. Personal factors certainly do cause people to lack motivation, but so too do the environments that people participate in. To enhance motivation, it is important to analyse and respond to not only a player's personality, but also the interaction of the personal and situation characteristics. Since motivations are likely to change over time, it is necessary to constantly monitor people's motives for participation. Guideline 2. Understand people's motives for involvement. This will require consistent effort and can be done in several ways. Firstly, identify why people partake in the activity. Motives play a big part in performance, and it is important to understand what drives the athlete. While examining people's motives for involvement, it is likely a coach may realise some of the following scenarios. 1. Players participating for more than one reason, for example, fitness, social, or feel-good aspects. Number 2. Players have conflicting motives, so maybe the clash of family and sport. Or 3. Gender and culture differences, so males and females will inevitably have different motives, as will people from different cultures. In order to gain this understanding of the athletes, a coach can utilise 3 main methods to monitor players. Firstly, a simple observation of participants can identify what they do and don't like. Secondly, an informal chat to people close to the athlete, friends or family. And thirdly, simply talking to the athlete or asking them to write down their reasons for participating. Continuously monitoring players' motives will allow coaches to implement the necessary steps to keep motivation levels high. Such steps may include altering the athlete's environment. For example, it has been identified that not all athletes have the same desire for competition and recreation. Therefore, opportunities for both could be provided to ensure all players get some of what they desire. Even elite athletes who demand a rigorous training schedule may also wish to partake in some fun activities to simply enjoy the company of their teammates and remember the reasons why they started the sport. One of the hardest parts for coaches can be to tailor every session to meet the needs of all players. Following step 2 of this process, coaches should understand the motives of their players. With this knowledge, they can begin to develop a strategy which takes into account the motives of all players. Although this can be challenging, if implemented successfully, a strong sense of harmony will be reached amongst the group, which is likely to lead to success. Shown here is the Australian cricket team engaging in some not so traditional training methods. Finally, influencing motivation. While some may not realise it, this is a huge factor for any coach. Coaches, or any leaders amongst the group, have a critical role for enhancing the motivation of others. Although the coach's influence may be indirect at times, and the importance of their actions may not be recognised, it is important to display a positive outlook. For example, someone who is energetic and outgoing can give considerable positive reinforcement through personality alone. An example of this may be a positive and upbeat coach who is having a bad day for reasons other than sport, and doesn't show their normal characteristics. The team will pick up on this and assume the coach's down mood is because of them, thus impacting on their motivation and possibly performance. So in summary to this presentation on motivation, I'd like to rehash some of the more notable points. We looked at a number of theories surrounding motivation. Probably the most recognised are the intrinsic and extrinsic theories. These suggest motivation comes from a desire within a person or the external rewards gained through success. We also looked at trait and situation-centered views, as well as the interactional view, which combines these 2 concepts. It is understood that a combination of participant and situational factors will influence motivation levels. Similar to intrinsic motivation, the self-determination theory addresses 3 components: competence, relatedness, and autonomy. If these 3 aspects are fulfilled, then the person is likely to experience increased motivation. While the achievement goal theory aims to enhance the motivation of an individual or team by setting task or ego-related goals. I also highlighted Maslow's hierarchy of needs, mainly to show how sport can fit into each category. With this knowledge, we can see how sport can assist people with the motivation of everyday life. Lastly, I addressed the issue of how to improve motivation. The key points to take out of this was that motivation is attributed to a combination of personal and situational characteristics. Coaches must understand player motives so they can tailor programs to meet their desires. This can be done by placing the athletes in a fun and enjoyable environment, as well as consistently displaying positive body language and emotions. Finally, as the list of references has shown, I'll return to the question I posed at the start of this presentation. Is motivation the only factor which separates 2 very evenly matched teams or athletes? In my opinion, the answer is yes. In a hard-fought contest, the athlete or team who wants it more, that is, has the motivation to succeed, is more likely to come out victorious. Therefore, coaches can never underestimate the impacts of motivation. They must ensure they take all appropriate steps to keep the athletes happy, focused, and above all, motivated.